You go, Hal. Hal, you're first. You're before me. Yes, absolutely. You don't need my permission to use the microphone.
Okay. Hello. Hello.
Need a mic on.
Just on. Hello. Hello. There it is. Hi. Hi. We'd like to go ahead and begin the meeting. Hi, everyone. I can't whistle. Thank you. There we go. Perfect. Thank you all. If we can get settled in, we'll go ahead and begin with some opening words.
I'm going to actually ask you all to join in a responsive reading, number 728, in the back of your gray hymnal. I often read parts of this, but since there's so many of you here today, let's all do it together. I'm going to read I'm going to ask you to read the straightforward. No, I'll read the straightforward. You read the italics, okay? 728. Blessed are those who yearn for deepening more than escape, who are not afraid to grow in spirit. Blessed are those who bring their children, who invite their friends to come along to join in fellowship, service, learning, and growth.
Blessed are those who support the church and its works by their regular, sustained, and generous giving, and who give of themselves no less than their money.
Blessed are those who know that the church is often imperfect, yet rather than harbor feelings of anger or disappointment, bring their concerns and needs to the attention of the church leaders.
Blessed are those who, when asked to serve, do it gladly, who realize that change is brought about through human beings, who do the work of the needs and stay till the end.
Blessed are those who speak their minds in meetings, who can give and take criticism, who keep alive their sense of humor. Blessed are all of us indeed. You all belong.
Like the chalice, may we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity.
Do we have a quorum? Okay, every member please raise their hand. A quorum for membership meetings is a minimum of 70 members under our bylaws. Anybody to 70 yet? All right. We have well over 70 members present. Therefore, this meeting is called to order. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kim Hackett, and I am the president of this congregation and will be presiding over this mid-year congregational meeting. Our bylaws require a 10-day notice for a general meeting, and this requirement was complied with. Now, as stated per bylaws, the privilege of voting at congregational meetings shall be open to all individuals who have been members for at least 90 days prior to the date of the meeting at which a vote is to be taken. We remind you that non-members shall not be allowed to vote. I would also like to introduce our parliamentarian, Phyllis Salter. She will be helping us with meeting procedures and rules of order as needed. Next, we will briefly review the special rules of order for this meeting. So if you want to.
Good afternoon. That's too loud. I would like to propose a motion for the following special rules of order for this meeting. And here it is. The discussion on a motion will not exceed 15 minutes. Each speaker will have 1 minute to speak. Each speaker may speak only twice, and the second time will be after everyone else who wants to speak has spoken. Normal rules of order do allow members to extend discussion time if the extension is approved by a 2/3 vote. And at the 1 minute point when you're speaking, if you see me hold this up, it means your minute is up. So we have to vote on that now.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay, we ready for the vote? Oh, it requires 2/3 vote, so counters. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. Okay. Any abstentions? Okay, we pass unanimously. I just would like to introduce the board members, and I'm just asking that all board members please rise and join me in acknowledging your board of directors. Thank you. We've had a great board this year, and they're working hard on everyone's behalf. Now, our board secretary, Melinda Fish, would like to present the meetings of the June 2018 Congregational Annual Meeting. These have been posted in the meeting notification packet for your review. Have there been any corrections? Are there any corrections to the minutes? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes of the June 2018 Congregational Annual Meeting, please raise your hands. Okay. All opposed, please raise your hands. Any abstentions? The minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you. Oh, 4 extensions? Okay. Thank you, guys. I'll remember to look at what you're doing. Okay, I would like to welcome Pat Lynch of the Nominating Committee.
Thank you, Kim. Hi, everyone. We have had several people this year step down from positions that they were serving in due to personal reasons, and it has been really great that others have stepped into their positions, and we'll need to vote on those people. So the first one is Dan Hiller, who was an at-large member of the board, stepped up into the operations chair position, which was great. Scott Weaver stepped up into the board at large to fill Dan's role. Rachel Rogers accepted the position to step up into the program council chair. And we'd like to thank Jean Klein, who served a full 2 years in that position, and then during the second term had a lot going on and needed to step down, and agreed to stay on for several months until we found someone. So thank you, Jean. And then for the nominating committee, Margie May stepped up into that position when Lynn Cushing, who had served a term in that position, needed to step down because she was committed to so many other church and other volunteer activities. So thank you, Lynn. And so nominating is very grateful to all of you for stepping up, and I'd like to turn it over to Kim for the vote.
Now it is. Okay. So, Pat, I see you made a motion on the slate. Can I have a second? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? Okay, all approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait, I've just got, okay. Next, I wanted to talk just for a minute about opportunities coming up for June. So nominating is currently looking, we fill the elected positions in the church, or you do. We seek out people to fill the elected positions in the church. And we really need your help because we don't know everyone and we don't know people's interests and skills, and there are a lot of talented leaders out there that we may not be aware of. So please, please be thinking about who can fill these positions. If you're interested, please talk to someone, and I'll tell you our names at the end. Or if you know someone who you think is a great candidate, please let us know. So the ones that we still have open for, we work all year to fill the positions for the next year. It'll start July 1st, President-elect, who oversees the councils and is the point of contact for the elected committees, and then the following year assumes the duties for president. And then the Resource and Development Chair, and they chair the Resource and Development Council, and they report on the status of the fiscal and personnel resources at the board meetings and guide the development of the annual budget. And that's in conjunction with, the finance chair, the treasurer, the personnel chair. So they've got a lot of people that are doing a lot of the work that they're overseeing and working in partnership with. We'll have a position on the nominating committee coming up in July. So if you know somebody who really likes to identify and recruit people for leadership positions, there are 7 of us on that committee, and we'll be looking for, one person is rolling off. We have people that roll off each year according to the bylaws, so we'll need to fill that. The Ministerial Advisory Committee will need someone, and that committee promotes effective ministry and addresses the concerns of ministry. And the Safe Congregation Panel will also be looking for someone, and they enforce the honoring the children's policy and making decisions when formal grievances are filed. So there'll be many other non-elected volunteer opportunities. So if you're not connected and you would like to connect, you can probably talk with a host of people in the church. But if you'd like to talk with someone on the nominating committee about the elected positions, if you could please stand if you're here, that would be Carol Koppel, David Lewis, myself, Valerie Martin, Margie May, Chaz Sisk, and Susan Warner. And thanks to you all for doing a great job.
Okay, so hopefully there'll be a responsive reading up there for you to follow. And there is responsive, you do italics again, there's a place for the congregation and a place for these newly elected leaders, because now we are going to officially install the people who were just elected. So I'm thrilled for us to be able to do this. Religious leadership knows the abiding presence of a sustaining and transforming love at the heart of life.
It testifies that this love is beyond all names, undergirds joy, asks for justice, disturbs the status quo, and is freedom.
Religious leaders point to the grace at work in life, especially in places of suffering and places of creativity.
They speak and act prophetically, pointing us in reverence towards what we hold sacred.
They lead congregations and communities to be active witnesses in the world to the abiding presence of love.
Members of our board of directors and nominations committee, who we elected to be leaders of our church, promise to fulfill the responsibilities of your position with a sense of trustworthiness, graciousness, dependability, humor, and love. Therefore, we bestow upon you the authority to act on our behalf by installing you as the elected lay leaders of our church during this next year.
We accept the responsibilities of our positions and will endeavor to provide the necessary leadership to ensure that First UU Church National continues to be both a haven and beacon of our Unitarian Universalist faith.
I saw Scott mouthing that. So. Thank you for serving. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome Valerie Martin, co-chair of the worship committee. Ah, there you go. Where is she?
Yes, that should say co-chair. Whereas Unitarian Universalist congregations have the sole power to ordain UU clergy, and whereas First UU member Sarah Green has completed all the requirements and are in preliminary fellowship with the UUA, the worship committee moves that the congregation ordain Sarah Green on May 4th, 2019. Before we vote on that, I have a brief statement that Sarah prepared that I'd like to share. This is from her perspective. In the fall of 2014, I started divinity school. A couple of months before, I visited Fun for the first time. The proverbial they said you won't get through divinity school without a spiritual practice. They were right. I had been churched growing up, attending Sunday Southern Baptist worship services and Wednesday night dinners with a particular Southern Baptist learned discipline. I learned a lot about spiritual practice with them, but fell away when my values in politics became decidedly pro-queer, pro-trans, anti-capitalist, anti-racist, anti-classist, pro-harm reduction, etc. I used my time in Vermont as a time to discern my own ideas about God, justice, and other such matters. Divinity school and getting started on the path to fellowship and ordination was more than I could have imagined, and often left me feeling very overwhelmed and out of control in good and not so great ways. Being connected to Fun throughout divinity school kept me grounded and able to see a bigger vision of the world, one that is more just and grounded in spirit, not just theory. Then, by the grace of God and the help of Reverend Gale, I ended up back at Fun for my internship. This was an experience that stretched me bigger than I ever imagined, and I have a lively imagination. My spirit still swells up with gratitude for all the ways of being that I learned during those short 9 months, from the nuances to creating a worshipful and spirit-filled community to approaching conflict and transformation as a sacred practice. Now I work for UU-identified and adjacent young people of color with the support and structures of UUA and live out of Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, but my connection to Fun remains strong. Given Fun's impact on my life during some of the most formative experiences in my ministry, I would be so thankful and blessed to have Fun ordain me this spring. I am excited for the new shape of what's next in our relationship as I settle into preliminary fellowship and beyond, journeying, learning, and loving with you.
Okay, the worship committee put up a motion. Do I have any seconds? Don't need one? Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? Okay. One abstention? Just one? Okay. The ordination of Sarah Green has been approved. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Jacob Hathaway, Chair of the Identity Task Force.
So I want to summarize a little bit of what we've done to date to lead up to this discussion or this vote. And really this started with discussions 3 years ago when we were starting the strategic plan. And part of what came out of the focus groups that we did as the strategic plan was there is so much, thank you. There is so much excitement in this community, and we get so much value from what we commit to each other. We realized that if we could harness that and focus our efforts in a joint effort of where we want to go in the future, that we can build some really exciting things here. And so the task force was built to sort of answer some of the questions we need to answer to move forward. This is a beginning, but this vote is trying to encapsulate that and give guidance to the board of where we want to focus our efforts for the future. The first question that we needed to answer is how big do we want to be in the future? One of the things we learned in talking about that is that our current size, some of the challenges that we have felt in feeling overwhelmed as volunteers, having small decisions made have been frustrating because of the amount of discussion that can happen for day-to-day decisions that need to be made, is kind of a natural thing to happen for the size that we are. So this is measuring sizes of church based on how many people come in the doors on Sundays, not on membership. But we're kind of at an awkward size. And so the question was, do we want to stay the same? Do we want to get smaller? Do we want to grow? We had workshops in February 2018 sort of discussing that issue. And what came out of that was really that folks overwhelmingly were interested in getting bigger. And there are different ways to get bigger. We can build here. We can move. We also talked about the possibility to split and become smaller. And really only about 7% of folks that, more than 50 people that participated expressed excitement about that option. And so we took that information and really tried to flesh out what you guys told us you were most interested in. Part of that was meeting with Tom Bauer. So he was an architect, and we couldn't ask him for specifics at this point, but we really asked him, what are the possibilities for the land that we have now? And more than 70 of you showed up to his presentation, and I think we learned from that really we have numerous possibilities of what we can do with these facilities. We can easily grow here. We can grow in this building. We can grow in a new building. We also talked to realtors about what the possibilities were for leaving here. And one of the things that they said is that if you move, you need to make sure that you're moving someplace where you will gain new members, because you naturally lose some of your membership when you move. Folks just can't make the extra drive. We did a survey of you guys, and I think got over 100 responses, or 83 responses. And really what that told us is that we're not uniquely immune to that risk. So if we move, some folks will have trouble following us as we move. So out of that information, we had additional meetings and got your feedback, and based on that feedback have built 3 resolutions, which we'll read in just a minute. I can't do justice to the discussions that we had in the 45 seconds that I'm giving myself to complete it, but I do want to summarize just a couple of the pluses and minuses that have come out of those discussions of the resolutions that we talked about. So if we move, the benefits of that is that we can move to a new community where we can draw new members. That's important because one of the disadvantages of moving is that we will lose some of the members here. One of the other benefits is that we can use the value of this property to move, to help us build new facilities. But the value in this property is based on the fact that it is centralized in an urban area. And so if our goal is to take that, to cash in on the value of that property, that means moving outside of a centralized urban area. So when we talk about building a new sanctuary here, if we moved out of this space and into a different space, there's nothing we can do with this space that will maximize our accessibility and the sustainability of our buildings the way new materials not built on a slope would maximize our access and sustainability. The disadvantage is that we all are very tied to this space, and the question really becomes, can an architect reflect what we value about this space in a new space? And then the other option is to preserve our sanctuary. It's obvious that this space is important to us, so it's hard for me to talk about that in detail. But the risks are that this space is challenging to maintain and expensive to maintain. And so that we're committing to continue to have that ongoing expense if we decide to build out of this space. So we want to do a vote now. Now we have 3 resolutions, and so the way we're going to run this vote is we are going to vote on all 3, so you can pick one to vote for out of the 3. We will take the 2 that get the most votes and then do a second vote just of those 2 against each other. So people feel like they can vote for what they actually want as opposed to trying to be strategic about it. That's our reasoning for doing that. Yeah, so we're going to read all 3 of them now, and have discussion, and then we'll do the vote. Thank you. Putting this discussion into perspective, Joan said today that the decision to build this space was made when there were 50 members of the church, and they were meeting in the fireside room for the congregation. And so when I think about the amount of vision and just dedication that folks, audacity, that folks must have had to envision this group of people meeting today, it's really overwhelming to me. And that's where I think we need to be thinking with that same audacity, is where do we want to go as a group? Personally, it's less important to me what of these 3 resolutions we decide we're going to guide the board with. What's important to me is that we're doing it together and that we have the energy to do this together. I think what comes out of this is if we are committed to working together, when we decide what that first step is, moving towards that goal, that step's going to be a lot bigger if we're all excited about doing it. So with that, I will let we will read through the 3 resolutions. First one to move.
Good afternoon. My name is Rudy Dunlap. I'm a member of the Identity Discernment Task Force. So the first of our 3 resolutions is a resolution to move our church to a new location. Whereas the current First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville's facilities are not able to support the larger and more sustainable church community that we aspire to, we, the congregation of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville, resolve to move to a new location and build facilities to support a larger congregation. Affirm our commitment to each other to build a liberal religious community that finds strength in our personal connection, shares our individual paths to spiritual growth, and acts on our values in the larger world. Call upon the board to develop a specific, achievable plan to sell the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville's existing property and raise funds to purchase a different property and facilities where we can better build a liberal religious community in the Nashville area. 1, complete a market analysis to determine where our church community can grow in Nashville and the surrounding areas. 2, hire a capital campaign consultant to establish challenging but achievable funding goals. 3, hire a real estate agent to sell the current property and identify and procure new facilities. 4, establish relationships with architects to envision new facilities that will accommodate a larger congregation size and will honor our congregation's history and current facilities. And 5, the congregation will vote on acquisition of a specific property and sale of our current property in the future.
Which way to push it? Forward.
Yep.
No. I saw it had an F on it. I figured that was forward. Okay, add on to the sanctuary. That's the next one, yes? Okay. A resolution, so this is add on to the sanctuary, a resolution, and I'm Christopher Cotton, another one of I'm the co-chair of the committee, or the task force. Add on to the sanctuary, a resolution to support, to build larger facilities to support our existing sanctuary. Whereas the current First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville facilities are not able to support the larger and more sustainable church community to which we aspire. And you'll notice that there's a lot of parts that are similar, but there's specific things that are different. So, but we want to read them in its entirety so you can get the sense of what we're actually voting on. We, the congregation of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville, affirm the importance of the existing sanctuary to our community and spiritual practice. Resolve to build facilities to support a larger congregation incorporating the existing sanctuary. Affirm our commitment to each other to build a liberal religious community that finds strength in our personal connection, shares our individual paths to spiritual growth, and acts on our values in the larger world. Call upon the board to develop a specific and achievable plan to raise funds and build facilities on our current property to better build a liberal religious community in the Nashville area. 1, hire a capital campaign consultant to establish challenging but achievable funding goals. 2, establish relationships with architects to envision improved facilities that will accommodate a larger congregation while leaving our existing sanctuary structure in place. Affirm the important role our sanctuary has played in our history and the spiritual life of our congregation and the importance of reflecting this in any new construction. Affirm our commitment to each other to build a liberal religious community that finds strength in our personal connection, shares our individual paths to spiritual growth, and acts on our values in the larger world. We call upon the board to develop a specific and achievable plan to raise funds and build facilities on our current property to better build a liberal religious community in the Nashville area. 1, hire a capital campaign consultant to establish challenging but achievable funding goals. 2, establish relationships with architects to envision new facilities that will accommodate a larger congregation size and will honor our congregation's and church's history. 3, Congregational vote on specific design and timing for building new facilities in the future.
Okay. Now it's time for discussion. Gail and Steve. Now it is time for discussion. Gail and Steve. Yeah, so we can take it to different people. Okay? Who would like to speak? Who would like to speak? Okay, I point to June.
Hi. I've been a member of this church since 1986, and I think this building is as important to me as it is to anybody. But I was listening to this, and it was reminding me of when I was in my sister's wedding. And I was 6 years old, and I wore this beautiful dress, and I loved it, and I was so excited about it. And I wore it until I was 9 years old. And it was ridiculous. My mother kept letting it out, and I'd wear it with pants, and finally I just had to say, this does not fit me. And so that's the way I feel about this building. I love it, but it doesn't fit us, and it's not welcoming. We had an event here yesterday, and it's so hard for people to get around. It's hard for me to get around it sometimes. So I love this building, and I want to stay in this location, but I just don't think it fits.
Okay, who?
If we stay in this building and build another building on this site, we don't have to move off-site during the building time, which to me is a huge advantage.
Next.
I absolutely love the architecture of the building, and I find it very difficult to think about any other style because this is, to me, welcoming. May not be to everybody, but I feel welcome, and I'm able to live outside with my eyes while I'm in here. So I'm torn.
I love this building as well, and I think that I was really heartened by the fact that I've forgotten his name, who did the architect who did the proposals that this vote is based on, who talked about how we can reproduce much of what we love about this church in a new building on the same site. I'm worried about us wasting money trying to rehab this building. The minute we touch it, we have to bring it up to codes. All of these windows, which are single pane and not up to codes, are columns that are not up to codes. I'm worried about wasting money in doing necessary work to make this building viable that could be spent on enlarging RE space and meeting space and all kinds of other things. That's why I favor option 3.
As I'm sure many of you know, climate change is a huge issue facing our world, and especially for the younger members among you, for the children that we have here in the church, it's only going to be affecting us more and more as time goes on. And so I think it's one of our Unitarian Universalist values to be sustainable, to try to be in harmony with the earth. And right now, like some have said, our sanctuary isn't as much as it could be.
First of all, as a volunteer with the RE committee and as a parent, I'm quite pleased with the fact that we are looking to build some new facilities of some kind. I have a number of questions about these different proposals. There was a reference earlier that if we build a new sanctuary, we would not have to move off-site. Does that mean that we would have to move off-site temporarily if we were to try to renovate this facility?
We don't know for a fact. Somebody said that, but we do not know for a fact, but usually people, when they renovate, do have to move off-site.
Another question I had is sort of, there were some massing plans that were presented with these materials. Do any of these, does the decision to either rebuild here or to build new, does that commit us to any of these particular massing plans, or is that something that would be decided by the task force at a future date?
No, it does not commit us.
Okay. And the last question I had is, what is the way forward after this meeting to determine which of these massing plans we're going to go forward with? And pointing to Jacob here a second.
Jacob.
My minute. So that's exactly right, is that the question we were asking Tom Bauer is, could we do it? Not specifically what we want to do. And that's the next step, is we really need to make a decision about, if we decide we want to stay here, we've got to make a decision about whether we are going to invest in this building or free up an architect to decide where they would build to maximize our accessibility use of the hills appropriately. So that decision would be made. Our next step would be figure out how much money we can raise, and that's a key question as to how big a step we can take first. But then start engaging with architects to decide what massing, where we would align our new buildings.
One final question is, would this task force that's been meeting continue to be the ones who would do this, or would there be a new task force appointed, and when would that happen?
I'm happy to answer that question. We're done when this vote is over.
The board is making plans for a new task force to be formed depending upon whatever the options, what you vote.
Well, I have watched other churches struggle with this decision in other areas and have difficulty fundraising. And I believe that a significant capital campaign would be required to either renovate this place adequately or to build new on this location. And that if we were to sell this location and relocate almost anywhere else, granted we would lose some, but we could move to a part of town that would enable us to reach out to persons of other ethnic groups and to expand our reach and to grow, but also to enable us to have the funds to be able to make that move with. So I definitely don't want to renovate this place. As much as beautiful as it is, I would want to see us build new. But the question is, should we build new here and have to come up with lots of money, or do as the National UU did in 2014, I think, when they sold their buildings in Boston for over $50 million and moved. And I would like to see us move.
Okay. Steve, do you want to?
So my question is right along the lines of what he's saying. My question is for the task force. Do we have a financial estimate on the 3 plans of just a rough number of what it would take for each one? I think sometimes when we hear that financial number from a capital assessment of what we would need to grow, it can help understand the bigger picture of each vote.
So we actually have, in trying to be visionary, we've tried not to keep ourselves limited to a specific number. So we do have a sense of how much we could sell this property for, which is about $3.5 million, so not 30 million, 50 million. Just want to make sure. But, and the way I've described it is that the decision of how much of that money can be used to build new facilities really is determined by how far we're willing to move outside of the center of town. So the further we move, the more of that $3.5 million could be used for facilities. I think no matter what we do, this is going to require a capital campaign. In order to get specific numbers for that, we've really got to make a decision about which one of those we're going to do.
I know this is considered to be an awkward size. I think one of the hidden advantages of this architecture is how it pulls us into contact with each other as humans on this scale. I kind of dread the idea of a Unitarian megachurch that's 3 times this size and impersonal, and I would hope that whatever new building we come up with can incorporate a lot of these issues, but also keep a flow where we can turn around and see each other the same way we can here.
I don't want to speak to any of the 3 specifically. I want to speak to the spirit in which we approach this. I think whatever we do, we need to focus on our values. Many years ago, we tried to become a green sanctuary. So I think that if we're going to move forward, for those of you who don't know, the UUA has a specific, just like we're a welcoming congregation, you can be certified as a green sanctuary. I think that the social justice work that so many here do, the room room at the inn is important. I think that one way to build on the energy that has come out of these conversations with the Identity Task Force is to make sure that as we move forward that we are being true to our principles, our values, and that we do make sure that the new facilities, whatever the congregation chooses, reflect our values, our commitment to social justice, our commitment to the environment, and thank you very much.
I'm going to try and really quickly mention 3 ways that our current facility impedes our ability to do justice work. The first thing I'm going to mention, we have to be selective about who we invite for room in the inn, which men we accept and bring back to our campus, because the Morgan House bathrooms are not handicapped accessible, particularly the ones with showers. The second way is that when I have invited interfaith immigration justice groups to meet on our campus, they say no because people are afraid to come to Green Hills because they're afraid of racial profiling, which will put them in contact with police and will put them in contact with immigration authorities. And then the third way is, I'm sorry, I hate this kitchen with the passion of 1,000 fiery suns. And I say this in 2 weeks, I am cooking the Habitat dinner, and there are things I'm doing in my home because I would rather not do them here. So yeah, that's what I got.
Over here somewhere? No, I have, she was first.
So I agree that it seems like we'd have to raise a daunting amount of money in a capital campaign if we wanted to build new, if we're not selling all this property and moving somewhere else. But I also am wondering, am I correct that we're essentially on 4 lots right now and that it would 3 lots, so it would be perhaps a possibility that if we were to build new here, that some of that money could come from selling a lot?
It is, if we, the 1 lot we could sell and still massing plan to have enough for growth is the one that the Morgan House is on. Okay, here. And
okay. Yeah. So my partner Sherry's not here, but we talked about this before I attended. One concern would be is if we move, are we able to take columbarium with us? That's one question. And then I guess I'm in support of Ayla and June. We don't fit this space, but I've grown up with this sanctuary. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to honor that, whatever we do. And the biggest thing is to be fiscally responsible, I think. And that includes having facilities that don't tax our resources because, you know, they're leaking air or things are breaking constantly. So I would like that to be considered as well.
The answer to that question about, yes, you can move the columbarium. Oak Ridge recently did that.
The language seems to be specifically about this sanctuary. How does the vote deal with the Morgan House and the Norris House?
What did you say? I didn't hear.
Speaking on behalf of the committee task force.
What'd you say? We didn't hear what you said.
She said, what does this have to do with if we move the sanctuary? Do we also, what does that have to do with the Morgan House and the Norris House? There was no consideration of keeping those. And we're going to sell. You're going to get to buy a chance to use a crowbar on the Morgan House if we vote to move forward. More? Yeah.
50 seconds left. Okay.
He's taking my time.
Yeah, I know
so
he is.
My name is Bob Day. I'm the Resource and Development Council Chair on the board, and I wanted to speak to a few of the financial considerations. My recollection of the presentation by the architect was that any of the options would be about the same price. So it's a dollar-neutral decision. It's what you want that matters. The other thing is, yes, we'll have to have a capital campaign, and yes, it will take a lot of money to do everything at once, but there's nothing that says we have to do everything at once. They bought the Win Lizerson's home, the Lizerson home, right? It wasn't your home? Anyway, they bought that house, and it's the Win Lilerson room, in the fireside room, and then they built this around it with the classrooms, and then we bought the Morgan house, and then we bought the Norris house, and then we expanded the sanctuary, and then we did the social area by tearing out the classrooms. So there's nothing that says it has to all be done at once. I'm obviously, well, I don't know if it's obvious, but I'm voting for the third option of new on this property. So that's me.
15 minutes is over. The 15 minutes is over. So the nominating committee proposed motions for us to vote. Thank you. It's getting late. Can I have a second to vote on Resolution 1? We don't need to do a motion. We just vote.
Because we're voting on the three. We'll vote for all three.
Can you put it on? I don't know exactly where it is.
So just to remind everyone, what we're going to do right now is we're going to go over each of the three proposals, vote for one of those. We're going to count up the votes for each one, and then we'll take whichever the top two of that are and drop the third one that didn't get enough votes, and then we're going to vote again. So there'll be 2 votes. This is our first vote that we're going to do right now. So vote for any of the 3 you want. We'll tally the votes, and we'll say which one actually got eliminated, and then we're going to do a second vote, and then you'll get to pick between the 2 of which one you actually want. So does that make sense?
For right now.
Right now, on the first 3 ones, you vote once.
Either
you pick
1,
which
2, or
one of the
3.
3 that you want to vote for.
My counter's ready.
Was there one other? Did that make sense? Someone else have?
It's right there.
So the choices are, the first one is to move, so sell the property, move somewhere else. I forget which the actual second one was.
The second one
was to add on to the sanctuary, so basically keep the sanctuary here, and then add on existing, so we build up, so that it will be the same sanctuary but new facilities, minus the Morgan house, minus the other house. The third one is, it's all up for grabs. We're going to be on this property, but it'll be a new sanctuary, new facilities. None of these we have exact details of like what will actually happen. That's future work, and if you are inspired by that, please volunteer for the committee and the task force. There'll be lots of those. You can help out with the decisions.
There'll be a lot to do.
Okay, so clear on the 3 votes. So right now we're going to vote for just one. Okay, so this is the first set. You pick one of the 3 that you want to vote for.
Okay, all in favor for Resolution 1, please raise your hands.
And this resolution is to move to a new facility. Sell the property here, move to a new facility.
Wait. Oh, 5? All opposed?
No, it's not opposed. So now we're going to the next one.
I need you.
Okay, so the next one, you can either vote for this one or you vote for the last one. I guess you could also abstain if you want to do that. So the next one is add on to the sanctuary. So keeping the current sanctuary, but adding on new facilities to support growing here. So if you're voting for that, raise your hand.
Total of 8.
Okay.
Okay. The third one is build new here, to build a new facility here, and still in keeping in line with what we have here. 105.
Okay, next.
Okay.
We have
Anybody abstentions?
Thank you.
One.
Anybody else?
Okay, so we're now going to vote on between two, because this is what we said we actually would do. So the one that had the least votes was moving to another location.
Are we going to vote on that again?
No. So we're now gonna you have two to vote on, either add on to the sanctuary or build a new sanctuary. So the first one you can vote for is to add on to the sanctuary. So all in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. Okay, 6. Yep. No, we'll do it at the end. And so now move to the, so build onto the new sanctuary, not building, build a new sanctuary here. So if you're for that one, please raise your hand. Okay. So I'll let you say that that's the one. So the one that got the most votes.
Yes. So it looks like this is the winner. So thank you all for paying attention, seeking out the information, and participating in the democratic process.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite Steve Jones, our church treasurer, and Bob Day, the resource and development chair, to give us a financial update. Thank you, guys.
My name is Bob Day. I'm the R&D Council Chair. Steve Jones, the Treasurer. Some people think we're the Smith Brothers. What do you think? Do we look like the Smith Brothers? Okay. Thank you. We don't have anything else to do. So behind me are the numbers that are the results of our 2017-18 financial fiscal year, which ended June 30th of 2018. You can see that our budgeted income line was 601,620, and our budgeted expense line was 609,191. That's right, we budgeted for a loss of 7,571. Our actual numbers, we had income, and this is all income, pledge income, non-pledge income, fundraising income, everything. Actual number was 582,913. Our actual expenses were 608,899. So our income was less than projected, and our expenses were less than projected by $292. However, the bottom line is our expenses exceeded our income by $25,986. This resulted in a fairly significant cash flow crunch in the first part of the current fiscal year because we had a difference of $18,000. This is better than last year when it was 1,738 more than the budgeted income amount. Our expenses year to date through December, 309,594, which is 11,928 less than the budgeted amount. So our net year to date is that we have $57,704 more income than expense. Don't get real excited. There's footnotes. A lot of people have paid their entire pledge in advance. Many people actually paid their 18-19 pledge at the end of 17. Now, it still counts as income, but I'm just telling you, there's not any more money coming from them this year. And there are a lot of people who have not paid anything on their pledge. There are a lot of people who've paid half their pledge. It's all over the map on who's paid. But frankly, we had a big surge in November and December of people paying their pledges this year before the end of the year. So we want to keep those cards and letters coming from those of you who have not done that, because we do need to make sure we get through through June 30th. Through June 30th. So $45,000 is a monthly number for us. So the excess of $45,000 is not going to carry us to June 30th. We need $45,000, $50,000 a month to make this place happen. So any questions about these numbers? Other than I know you're excited. Okay. So one other thing that I wanted to talk about that fits in with the previous conversation about the vote. Last year, we had hoped to have a capital campaign, a mini capital campaign, to take care of some things around here, like we didn't build a sign. That was in part of the stewardship campaign last year, but the campaign fell short, so we couldn't build a sign. We wanted to do replacing carpet and painting the exterior, a lot of different projects. But for a lot of different reasons, we never could get really good numbers on any of those except for the sign. So the board decided to postpone any capital campaign until later. And we plan to review the situation in May, at the board meeting in May. It depends a lot on what we did today, and we just don't have a plan that's definite yet. I just want to acknowledge that we thought we were going to do it. We didn't do it. We're planning on looking at it in May. Don't know if we'll do it then, but we're talking about it. So it's just going to depend on how things work out. Any questions about that? Okay, Steve.
Leave that up there. I just want to add to what Bob said regarding those numbers. Earlier in the year, because we had gone through 2 fiscal years with big losses, we had a really bad cash crunch in August. In fact, we weren't even going to be able to make payroll unless we got some money from somewhere. So we had to move some money from operating reserves just to make payroll in August. And the numbers that you see in income up there, the number you see, the income of 309, that actually includes $9,000 that we moved from our reserves. So it's kind of not really money that we got from anywhere other than from our sales, from our reserves. So hopefully we'll be able to, now that cash is looking better, maybe we'll be able to pay that back to reserves. One of the things that happened last year, and I guess you're all aware, we changed bookkeepers. And as a result of that, we have made some pretty significant changes in the systems that we're using. You've all heard or seen in the newsletter about the new system Breeze, which is a membership database and will track your contributions and pledges. And you'll also be able to log on to Breeze and to see your own contributions and generate your own statements if you want. So we're in the process of that. We'd really love, if you haven't got an account on Breeze, if you're a member, to please get an account on Breeze and go inside and see what you can see. We also switched from the old Shelby record-keeping system to QuickBooks. Primary reason for that was that there aren't too many bookkeepers out there that know anything about Shelby. and most all of them know about QuickBooks. So we have switched to QuickBooks. We are no longer using Shelby. We are now totally on Breeze and QuickBooks. Because of the switch, we went several months where we were not able to really get good reports. And so I'm happy to say now that we have really good reports through December, and that those of you who are committee chairs or have restricted accounts, you'll be able to see reports online so you can see where you're at. The other good thing about Breeze is that we're able now to email you your statements versus spending $1,000 a year on postage to mail those statements. So everybody should have gotten a test statement in early December if we had your email address, and the 2018 tax year statements will be going out in the next couple of weeks. So you should be looking for those at email. And then every quarter you'll get an email with your fiscal year to date statement showing where you are on your pledge.
Who should we contact if we didn't get a statement?
Me. So, I'm sorry, yeah. You can send an email to me if you know my email address, or you can just send it to treasurer@thefund.org. Some other things that have happened this year is that we have added a lot of different ways for you to give. One of the things we also did was, by the way, we dumped our credit card processor, which was Merchant Solutions, and we are now using a credit card processor called Vanco Solutions. And Vanco gives us a whole lot of options. You can now give online, you can give via text, you can download the Give Plus app, and you can give via an app. There's just a whole lot more alternatives for us to be able to give, and it's a lot cheaper than Merchant Solutions was. And just also want to remind you that if you aren't doing this already, that you can make your pledge via an ACH on a monthly basis. That's really helpful to us right now. Every 18th of the month, we have a surge in cash flow of about $18,000 or $19,000. That's great. It would be nice if everybody was making their pledge monthly like that. That would make, it would just make it a lot easier to run church if we know we have money coming in every month at the same time. So that's all I've got. If you got any questions, or you can just see me afterwards.
One more thing about Breeze. We know there are a lot of, there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done. I talked with a member today who doesn't even have her correct address, doesn't have her correct email address. So we're getting things, we're working through things. If you don't have a Breeze account, contact the office. If you need help getting your information in Breeze corrected, contact the office. You can also contact me or Steve. We are pretty, we know we can do that stuff. But it's up to you to make sure everything's correct. Yes.
Contact database@thefund.org.
Okay. There, I stand corrected.
Not the office. That's
Okay. Database@thefund.org. 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 And right now, if you are not a member, we're not offering access to Breeze individually. That is a matter of discussion with the staff and the board right now. We're going through some process to try and figure out the best way to handle all that. It's very exciting. So if you are not a member and have questions about your contribution statement or whatever, again, contact Database or Steve or me. Oh yes, there is a phone app that where you can download Breeze and use the same. I used it this morning.
That is our directory. It replaces our
June. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob and Steve. Now I'd like to introduce Candy Toller, co-chair of the 2018-19 Stewardship Committee. Take it away.
Thank you, ma'am. And I don't deserve any credit. You guys deserve the credit for the campaign last year. You're going to be in control of that, Kim? So thank you all for the successful campaign last year. And let's hope we have as successful a campaign this year. Barb is not able to be here. She was here for part of the time, and then she had to leave to go to an out-of-state meeting, so she apologizes. So this year, the stewardship campaign is going to kick off on March 3rd. You're going to let me do it. Thank you. Okay, that makes it easier. And we're improving the church experience. Chelsea Henry came up with that descriptor, and I love it. So we're talking about the board has asked for your financial support to honor and appreciate the staff again, and to address a staff financial position which we have been needing, which has required a lot of volunteer hours for many years, a part-time staff person, and then increasing the program budgets for several things, and maintaining our beautiful and aging campus, which we've talked about for quite a bit today. And what is our board's goal for stewardship this year? $650,000. That's what happens when you raise $590. Thank you, Trig. That's what happens when you raise $595,000 in a year. Then they just increase it, increasing the expectations. And we hope that we will climb up this ladder once again. I want to show you, and I don't know how easily you can see that, some statistics on how our church is financed. There are 68% of our members and friends who make a commitment are in the lower quartile of our church experience here in terms of pledging. And I'm going to have to get closer to that one. I can't even, well, I can see it from here. But there are 3 or 4 families that are in, I'm sorry? Oh, so I can turn and look at it. Okay. There are 3 or 4 families who are in the $15,000 to $20,000 contribution, pledge/contribution category. And it goes down from there, and down in the very bottom category, we have between $40 and $500. We have over 60 people who contribute. What we're hoping is that you will step up the ladder this year again, a little bit, or as much as you're able to do, so that we can accomplish some of the things that the board has set as goals. Here's a better look at the quartiles. 166 people are in, 166 people raise a quarter of the money that comes into this church, and 12 people are in the top quartile. So each one of those groups raises 1/4 of the money through pledges and contributions, raises 1/4 of the money. We need your help. And then this is something that was done several years ago in the Sustainable Finance Committee, some work done, that shows where we are in relation to typical UU churches. And you can see in the first category to the right, we're about the same as others. We're not as good as healthy nonprofits. In the second category, we're about the same. And in the third category, we fall way down in terms of this fourth category is our fourth quartile, and we have way more people on the lower level, lower rung of our church commitment level than even other UU churches. So again, I say I hope that we can climb up the ladder this year so that we can get to a little more healthy number. And you're trying to take a picture of that. I'll be glad to send the graph to you. Thank you to Charlie for making the graph for me. Okay, so we're going to start off on March 3rd, and the campaign will end on March 31st. And I hope you guys will climb up the ladder. And I don't know what Gail has in mind for ladders, but she did something interesting last year, didn't she? Thank you all.
Next, I'd like to introduce Allison Thompson, Chair of the Endowment Trust.
Hi, I'm Allison Thompson. I'm Chair of the Endowment Trust. And I wanted to start off by thanking our current trustees. And if you're here, if you would stand, Linda DeRico, Lori Samuels, Mark Stash, and Vicki Tatarin. Thank you. For those of you who are not aware of the Endowment Trust or its purpose, the Trust receives donations made to the church in honor of or in memory of someone. It functions much like a savings account does for an individual or a family. This is money that is set aside for the long-term benefit of the church. It gives us funds to use for an unexpected emergency need, and it helps to ensure the long-term financial stability and security of the church. Grants are made annually to worthy projects that benefit the church or the church's efforts in the larger community. The financial information, did I just push the button? Which? Oh, okay. Okay, oh, I don't know if you can read that, but that shows the balance that was in the trust at the end of December. The next slide. Can you tell us what the total at the end of December was $571,370. This account, this slide shows what happened over the course of the year. We started out with $597,000 in our investment account, and when that's added to the restricted account, a total of $609,000. We added to the trust $9,365 in donations and reclaimed almost $1,500 in unspent grant funds from previous years. The disbursements during the year included $21,844 in grants and transfers to capital reserves. We did have stock market losses toward the end of the year of almost $27,000, but I'm happy to say that most of that has come back to us from the stock market, and on Friday the value is back up to over $590,000. In terms of our investments, our goal is to maintain a 50-50 balance between the stock and bond funds. We're mostly invested in low-fee index funds and plan to rebalance as we need to maintain that 50-50 balance. Donations were received during 2018 in the amount of $9,365. Donors were these 26 individuals and couples who I wanted to recognize and thank for their donations. Most of the gifts were given in memory of Virginia Grantham, Nancy Ransom, and Rebecca Bell. The Legacy Circle is a group of people who have made a commitment to make a gift to the church at their deaths. The gift can be in any amount. It can be a bequest in a will or a trust, a beneficiary designation on life insurance or a retirement plan or a bank account. We have about 76 members in the Legacy Circle, and we are always looking for more members and encourage all of you to consider joining the Legacy Circle. If you have questions about that, you can talk to any of the trustees. The grants made in 2018 were for the architect massing plan, a room in the inn equipment upgrade, and then transfers to capital reserves. We also gave to a commissioned art project where we have commissioned artist Sherry Warner Hunt to create a mosaic art project in memory of Hilda and Aaron Hiller, who gave very generously to the trust. The mosaic should be completed this summer and will be in a movable form that will hang on the outside of the building and can be moved if to a new location. The plans for next year, for this year, I should say, under the trust bylaws, we're able to give 5% of the average trust value over the last 13 quarters. That value the total is $22,619 that we can give in 2019. 40% of that amount, or $9,048, will be added to capital reserves, and 60% will be distributed in grants. So now it's the time for those of you who are interested in applying for a grant to get your paperwork and approvals in place. There's more information on the website about the application process and what we need to see in the applications. The deadline for grant applications is March 31. Any questions? Yes? That will be up to that will be up to the board and the facilities and finance people to make a decision as to how that is used.
I thought that program was originally set up to go towards upkeep of the facility.
Well, that's how it will be used, how the capital reserves will be used. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Oh, I screwed it up. Now, next we'll hear from our minister, Gail Seavey.
One of your ministers. If anyone doesn't know, before we announce our formation of a lead minister transition team, you need to know that we're doing that because I am retiring in the end of June in 2020, which is a little less than a year and a half from now. I think almost everyone knows this, and I put it in writing in the January newsletter, right, so that you would know. It has been such an honor to serve this congregation all these years, an honor and a blessing. I said when I wrote it in the newsletter, I quoted Winnie the Pooh, who said, "I'm very lucky to be leaving a place that makes me so sad to leave, but I am almost 70 and I will be then." And coming to nighttime meetings gets harder and harder. So I want to go out while I can still do my job. You've just made decisions today, and it didn't matter what decision you made. It's the fact that you made a decision that is going to make it easier for the transition, because every congregation I know that has a clear idea of their direction is able to has much bigger choice of ministers, and you're going to be able to find someone that you really love and can work with as well as we have worked together in shared ministry for all these years. So the lead minister advisory committee has been working with me on how we can use this year, this luxurious year, to say goodbye, to remember where we've been in the last, it'll be 15 years, to celebrate what we've been to each other, and hopefully you'll give me a big roast at the end. And so hopefully this is just an invitation for us to have the opportunity to really say goodbye and celebrate together. And so now you know why we're having this next task team being formed. And I cannot be on that team. This is about your future now, and all the things I've been doing to help prepare you to make decisions for your future. Now I'm going to have to step back from those things. So I'm going to be turning it over to the next team.
Thank you, Gail. I'd like to introduce Jessica Hemmerich, Chair of the Lead Minister Transition Team. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make this quick. I know it's been a long meeting. There's a lot going on. So I'm honored to lead the Lead Minister Transition Team. We did work on a drafted charge. Gail and I and the famous Bob Day and I worked on that in the month of December. We posted that to the board, and that's what I'm going to review with you quickly today. This charge is very similar to what we did 2 years ago. You may remember the Transition Innovation Team. I was committee chair of that as well. That helped us to focus on our needs from an assistant minister and a director of ministerial music with Jason's departure 2 years ago. So it will be a similar process. We're going to take our time. As Gail said, we're very fortunate that we have a large amount of time to talk to you, the congregation, and our community on what our needs are going forward. We did make some pretty big decisions today, so a lot of that will be played into what's best for us and who is going to be the next great individual that will be partnered in this community with us. So if we look at the charge from the board, it was drafted in December, was approved in the January board meeting. This Lead Ministerial Transition Committee will partner with the UUA Transitions Office. So there is an individual that is assigned to our Southeast region. She and I have been in touch, and she and I are going to be working closely with the Lead Minister Transition Team. We will be following all the protocols and helping to set up the draft work so that when the search committee is put together, that's a really important distinction. This Lead Minister Transition Team is not the search committee, so we will be looking for volunteers for those individuals. What we will be doing is laying the groundwork so that the search committee is set up for success, if that makes sense. We're going to research the different options that we can move forward with post Gail's retirement, and we will be looking at interim ministers, called ministers, and developmental minister options. There is a ton of information on our website and the UUA website about the different definitions of those, and we'll be talking more to the congregation about those options. We're going to be holding a series of community conversations, lots of different times and dates this spring that you can come and learn more about it and voice your opinions on what you would like to see post Gail's retirement as well. We did a lot of studies and information with the Transition Innovation Team 2 years ago. We're going to bring a lot of that information into it because it's not just about the lead minister that's coming into our congregation, but it's about how that individual will play with the rest of the staff and our congregation. That's really important so that we utilize all of our assets really well. What else? And then by June of 2019, so in 6 short months, we are going to make a recommendation to the board on what we would like to see moving forward. From that time, probably by the fall of 2019, we'll put together the search committee and move forward with the plan. Just for your information, the ministerial transition team are these individuals. We have Chelsea Henry, we have Marguerite Mills, who will serve as our staff liaison. We have Bob Day, June Dye, and then since the publication of these materials, we've also added Kathy Chang, who you know as one of our affiliated chaplains, and that's going to be a great role as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. We're going to be hard at work, but we're going to be talking to you over the course of the next 6 months. Thank you so much.
Thanks to all. And Hal, would you please extinguish the chalice and give our closing words?
If we had a Hanukkah miracle, our lamp might still be going, but it is not. So that must mean it's time to wrap it up. Because of those who came before, we are. In spite of their failings, we believe. Because of and in spite of the horizons of their vision, we too dream.
Thanks to all. The meeting is adjourned.
Closing words. What does democracy look like? All right.